grew up overseas, mostly in Europe, and I was in Switzerland at a school there called Eglon College, and our headmaster was very animal oriented. In fact, he was so much so that he was a vegetarian. This is long before vegetarians were hip. And on top of it, he tried to encourage all of us to become vegetarians, which I'm not, but which I was having to go through the inoculation of eating things like soya and all this other stuff. And back in those days, this is in the late 60s, early 70s, it wasn't as tasty as it is today. But I like the fact that he planted the seed in a lot of us about animal welfare and being kind to animals. And being in Switzerland, there were cows everywhere around us. We were up in the Alps, and you'd see them every day. And there were chamois, which is kind of a mountain goat that was nearby, and lots of birds. And so it was a very nature-oriented environment. Anyway, I was in my later years at this place. I was taken. I kind of took an attraction to the film club and started doing some things with the film club in the school. And one of the things was I got some films, and these films came from a group called Friends of Animals out of New York. Friends of Animals were trying to make films that would bring awareness to animal abuse. And one of the things that came from them was a film that was about the seal slaughter up north for their pelts. And it was the most horrendous thing I've ever seen. And we watched it as the film club, and we all walked away going, "Oh my God, I can't stand that." And I don't like animal abuse, talking about, looking at it, whatever. And AnimalZone is anything but about animal abuse, because you can find enough of that on the internet. But it did leave a mark, about animal welfare. And I thought, well, you got to really be kind to animals and really look out for them. And we're out there kind of protecting these animals as best we can, because hey, most of them were here first. So I ended up just being aware of animals, having pets along the way, loving animals, bonding with them. And it wasn't until, I've been adopting and rescuing animals, but it wasn't until about 2017 that there was that ad that was running on TV. You may have been aware of it. And it was animals in cages, dogs in cages, very scrawny, sad-looking dogs in a small cage.
Familiar.
Very sad song being sung by a beautiful singer, but very sad. And we would race to change the remote control, change the channels, because we couldn't stand watching it. I kind of don't want to see sad stuff like that. There's enough of that in other places. So anyway, I kind of thought, well, is this ad helping anybody? Is this ad really doing any good? Certainly a lot of people want to write a check right away and send it to this organization. It was a national organization, but is it helping? And I spoke to a woman who runs a shelter locally, and she said, no, it doesn't, for two reasons. One is that when people see that ad, they think that any kind of animal rescue is going to be very depressing, and maybe going to an animal shelter is going to be a sad thing, which is the furthest thing from the truth, because most of these shelters these days are fantastic. Some of them are like Four Seasons hotels. They're typed in music. I'm going, can I check in? And the other thing which was amazing was they don't get a dime from all that money they're raising. They're raising millions and millions and millions of dollars, and the local shelters are sitting there, scrounging, trying to get, $10, and they're not getting it. And they said, our problem is, people write in and they think because it's got a similar name to all the other shelters around the country that they're sending it to these other shelters, but it's not. And they said, really, what you got to do is get the word out that, support your local shelter. Whether you're in California and Santa Barbara, or you're in Illinois or Chicago, wherever you are, find out the local shelters, and if you're feeling so compelled, send them a check, because they can really use it, and it won't go a lot of fees and a lot of infrastructure, a lot of ads on television. So I thought, well, that's something we should work on, and maybe if we flip the narrative, maybe we can flip the result and get people to realize that shelters are great places to go and adopt an animal. Better to adopt an animal than to go buy an animal from a breeder. And secondly, support them, with money, with volunteering, fostering. There's a lot of different things people can do to help a shelter. And that was really how it got born, but just on a local level. Because Santa Barbara, we're kind of on the central coast of California, and we have we're far enough away from LA that we don't have much contact with that, and we're far enough south of San Francisco, so we're really kind of like a little oasis in a way, and we've got a number of shelters, and we thought, well, let's just bring awareness to the local viewers. So that's how it started. Local show, local thing, right. And that worked great. We raised enough support to get this thing made, and I thought, hey, if we can do 5 or 6 episodes and get them out on local television, that'd be great. And somehow we managed to get a whole season, which was 13 episodes out, and more interest in doing it, more of it, and not only just within Santa Barbara area, but to expand across California, go down all the way down in San Diego, and there's things down there that are shelters that need exposure and that need some kind of a visual that will change people's perception and maybe get them inspired to go there. So we went all across California, and that kind of took off. And then we started to expand as our distributor is Cox Television. So Cox said, why don't you try, we're in Arizona and Nevada, why don't you go do some stuff out there? And we went to Nevada, went to Las Vegas, and they have amazing animal stories out there. I mean, you wouldn't think it, but, there's a lot of I think people who go to Las Vegas and they have big hearts because they've lost all their money. No, they have big hearts, and they look after animals, and there's just some wonderful groups there. So we started to focus on those guys, and then COVID hit, and when COVID hit, it was amazing. It was terrible, but for us, for the show, it was great because everybody was starting to rescue animals because they were stuck at home, and they were looking, and they were going, "Well, I want to get a dog, or I want to get a cat, or I want some birds," And so people were going to shelters, and shelters were running out of animals, which was
which is great. Yeah,
it could be better,
right?
And so we thought, well, what we're going to do is we've got to expand our horizons, and Cox Television said, let's take you across the whole U.S., all of our markets that we're in, and that was all the way out to Florida, and do stories on other shelters around the country. And so we did, and we found lots of different stories. I mean, not all shelters are created equally. Everybody has a different approach. Some are great, some are good, some we don't record.
Right. Yeah.
You got to have, our goal is to inspire people, entertain them, inform them, and inspire them. And if we can do those 3 things, then I think we've done something. So we ended up, doing, 2 seasons and 3 seasons, and then we started hearing from a distributor in LA who said, let's see if we can get it on some of the streaming platforms like Tubi and Plex and Pluto. And I went, great. Because we're a nonprofit, so our goal is to get as many eyeballs to see the show as possible. That's all we want, and that's all the people who help us want. So by getting some of these streamers to carry it, it was taking it internationally: England, Europe, Asia. All of a sudden, wow, we've got we have a much bigger world here, and all those places have animal stories that are so different, I thought one of the great things about doing a show like this is that, I went into it knowing absolutely nothing about shelters and animal welfare. I still don't know much, but just going along the way by meeting the people that are doing things, and it's been a great education. So we went overseas. We went. First, we finished the U.S. pretty much. We did Florida, we did Dallas, we did other states, and then we went over to Switzerland, my stomping ground. I thought, well, I know people in Switzerland and animal welfare people, to a certain degree, and it was amazing because Switzerland has a whole different approach to animal welfare. Actually, a very good one. For example, they have laws like you can't have just one guinea pig. If you have a guinea pig, you've got to have 2. They're working right now on cows because, the kind of the iconic image of Switzerland are the cows up in the mountains, the bells ringing, singing and the mooing and the, hills are alive with the sound of music,
Right.
and I met this lawyer who's an animal welfare lawyer on Zurich, and he said, this cow business is not great for the cows. And I go, what do you mean? So, well, the bell they carry is very heavy around their neck, and the noise creates stress. And the end result is the milk these cows produce is not as good as milk that's produced from cows that are not wearing these bells.
Okay.
So, wow, who would have even thought that?
Yeah, who'd have thought? Yeah.
I mean, but now they're trying these GPS, because they had the bells on there so the farmer could find the cow.
Right.
They're up in the mountains in the summertime, going through who knows what, and if they couldn't find the cows, then they'd be in trouble. So now they're putting GPS trackers on these cows, little tiny band, which doesn't weigh anything, doesn't make any noise.
Right.
You lose a little bit of the traditional scenery that you think of.
Yeah.
But you got happy cows and good tasting milk. So I guess
Right.
you gotta work it out. But I'll go for good tasting milk. So that was really an education, and that's what I've been finding as we go to other places around the world, that animal welfare is different in those places. We were in Hawaii just in May doing a whole season, which is airing right now, and we went to Oahu, we went to Lanai, we went to Maui, we went to the Big Island, and we found out a lot of things about Hawaii that were different. Like, for example, and this is a curious question. I haven't come up with the right answer for it yet, but we found that certain Hawaiians, especially maybe outside of the big metropolitan areas, but like out in the countryside and whatever, they don't like the spay and neuter business with dogs and cats.
Okay.
They want their animals intact. It's part of their culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I was shocked because I thought that spay and neuter is like the answer to all the problems of overpopulation. No, they don't like that. And some people are trying different approaches, like, there's certain medications you could give an animal that will stop them from reproducing, or you just be a good owner and keep them out when they're
Right.
at home.
Right. Yeah.
Dog, you keep them locked up. No, you don't.
Right.
But I think the idea was that there's maybe other answers than just surgery, and so that was kind of an interesting cultural difference.
Right.
So,
the Sweden one is interesting because it's a situation where the
Switzerland,
the traditional way of doing it actually was improved through a piece of technology. And a lot of times we think of technology becoming the problem that then we have to solve for things like this. So that was kind of interesting that it was technology had the little solution.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, there are answers out there, and who knows what? Maybe we'll find some answer to spay and neutering that will be a better answer than just cut and run. And then we were in Japan. We filmed in Japan, which was another great experience. I mean, I love Japan. Probably, if I had to take between Switzerland and Japan, I love them both. So it's hard to know which one I'd want to be in if I wasn't here.
Right.
But the Japanese are so wonderful. They're so gracious. They're so gentle for the most part, unless you're in the war with them. But that's another story. But they had a very interesting approach to animal welfare. It's actually the younger generation that's doing more. The older generation, I think they have an awareness to a certain degree, but it's a younger generation who's been watching things on the internet, watching shows, just evolving. And they are the ones who are setting up these shelters. And they're doing kind of very clever shelters. Like there's one where in Tokyo, there's a shelter where you can get a dog for the day and take the dog around and walk in the city and all this. And you actually pay to do that. But it gives you that chance of having a bonding time with a dog, and then you can return the dog. It's kind of like grandchildren and grandparents, you have them for a little bit of time, and you say bye, sayonara. But it really was great to see, because it was helping these dogs decompress out of the shelter. They were with people, and going to parks and maybe going and having, I don't know, some green tea, whatever they do.
Right. Yeah.
But it was a good idea, and this woman, of course, encourages people to adopt the dog. But in Tokyo, it's such confined areas. The rooms are very small, the spaces are very small. That actually Tokyo has a much higher proportion of cats as far as pets to dogs, because of the fact that cats are smaller and easier to look at. But you see things like that, and you go, "Wow, there's just such interesting ways to deal with issues." And going around, seeing how different places do it is been a great education for me.
Yeah. That's on that same exactly what you're talking about. And we probably didn't fill you any little on James on why he started this and why he was so interested in talking to you when the offer came in. He's in college right now, but interns at Willowbrook Wildlife, which is a local rescue that rescues native
wildlife.
Fantastic.
If anything else comes in, they will direct people to other shelters, because they are sponsored by the Forest Preserve. They have certain limitations, like they're part of the local forest preserve, so they have limitations. But they'll never say we won't do anything. They'll say, "Oh, we can't take it, but here's someone who can," as an example.
So they come up with answers. That's the best thing, if they can do that. And I mean, being specialized in wildlife is such a unique corner of this animal welfare world, because it's so huge. I mean, you think of all the different species they bring in, and I'm sure your center must see all kinds of different things, right?
Yeah, I mean, I usually clean up after birds or ducks or like squirrels. But I mean, I think this summer alone we had herons, we had foxes, we had cranes, like whole sandhill cranes.
And to be able to nurse them back to health and release them safely.
Just to have a vet who can do all those different species is an art in itself, because they've had to study a lot of different biologies. We have one out here called the Wildlife Care Network, which is a great organization, and it was really started by a bunch of volunteers who were looking after animals that were injured. That could be on the beach or a deer that got hit on the road or something like that, and they would have them in their house, or it was very like that for many years. And then there was a angel that came along and helped them acquire some land where they would have some space to actually house some of these animals. And then they saw the real need was to build a hospital, an animal hospital. And that's a big undertaking, because again, you've got lots of different kinds of wildlife that come in there, and you've got to have them separate, of course. And you've got to create environments that are not going to bond the animal to a human, which I think is a fascinating side of it, because I've gone to a couple of these now, and they don't have names. And I say, "What's the name of that pelt? What's the name of that?" "Oh no, we don't have names. We have numbers for them." So they can identify who they are, but you don't have like a warm fuzzy feeling. Although I think they still people still get attached to animals. And what they do, which is I think great for wildlife, especially out here, is once the animal's healed, they re-release them to where they were found, so they can reconnect with their families, and that's so important. And we've seen how there's a certain joy of being released. That's probably the most rewarding part of what you're doing, is when you go out to the release side of it.
It's the biggest smiles we get when he comes home with one of those stories.
Yeah, I mean, we've done also like at Willowbrook, it's more like a lot of times there's orphans, so they'll keep them in, for ducks, example, they keep them in large groups and they'll release the group together. Right. So a lot of times I've gone out to one of the local forest preserves with them, because it's the DuPage Forest Preserve District. So they have a lot of forest preserves they can go to, and going there, releasing a bunch of ducks and watching them walk out is the best thing.
It is, isn't it? And I mean, those are the rewards of what you're working on, and it's really needed, because I mean, you want to see more of that kind of organization around the world, because a lot of wildlife gets a short stick on things. I mean, people don't look at them as like they do with pets, especially. So it's really great that you're doing that. With this Wildlife Care Network, they built this hospital, and it took a lot of money and a lot of hard work to get it up and running. And just as they finished it, there was an illness that hit all the pelicans out here, and all the pelicans were just dropping out of the sky. And it was probably an algae thing or something to do with something in the water. I don't know what, but whatever it was. And I don't think they still found out what it was, but they had hundreds of birds that turned up at the center, like the day they opened. And it was like test by fire. I mean,
trial by fire. Yeah.
But they managed to pull it off. And it's
is that a, now I know, like with Willowbrook Wildlife, and I would assume with that and many others across the country, we've talked about, you can donate to these organizations. But where he interns and volunteers, I assume the Care Network, will they have volunteers and interns, or is it just financial? Okay.
No, they depend on volunteers. I mean, they have to pay their vets. I think vets do as good a price as they can, and then they depend on the community to support them. And there are some very big-hearted people in the area that love animals. So fortunately, they can find that fundraising, but it's hard. Fundraising is a tough side of this business. I mean, it kind of is probably the biggest challenge for an organization, because it's got to be run kind of like a business in a way. You've got to be able to pay your bills, and pay the working staff that aren't volunteers, and all the supplies and all the food and everything else. The vet care. I mean, people don't realize what a commitment it is for someone to build a nonprofit welfare animal shelter.
Right. Is it? Would you say, as you traveled around and done the shows, most of the places that you've worked with, I assume, have been non-for-profit and volunteer. So if people were to watch your series, they might see something in their local area where they could go volunteer and support. That might be one avenue for them to locate something near them.
I mean, if they go, in fact, we try and profile all the guests we have on our website at AnimalZone.org, because you can go there and see these different shelters around the country and around the world. And if you see someone that is in a local area, you can help out. But also, if you just go on the internet and say, I'm in Willowbrook, what are the shelters here? Most of the time, you'll a good listing. That's how I find them before we do the show, because I'm okay. We're going to go to Florida in December, and it's the second time we're going to Florida, but we're going to a whole different area this time, and we're going to start at the Keys, way down south at Key Largo, and make our way up. So when I started working on it, I went, well, and in fact, actually, one of the reasons was our director, William Conlon, had a real desire to go visit the Hemingway House Museum in Key Largo, because they have polydactyl cats, the ones with the 6 paws. and Hemingway apparently had a great passion for these kind of cats. So I thought, well, that's an interesting story, because not everybody even knows about these cats, and maybe we could build something around that story. And they have these cats there, so we actually would have living, breathing representatives of Hemingway's cats. And so that was what sort of started our thinking of, well, we'll go down to Key Largo and work our way up. And of course, start finding there's, dolphin research centers that are doing work down there. There's a bird rescue that's doing stuff. There's a fox rescue. One of the most interesting rescues is the Monroe County Sheriff's Animal Farm. And I went, there's an animal farm with Monroe County Sheriff? What is that? Turns out they built a prison down near Key Largo, and underneath the prison nearby there was ducks that would come in, and the prisoners would go down and they would feed the ducks and ultimately care for the ducks, clean their areas and all that. And the sheriff just sort of watched these prisoners that were getting to be much better prisoners, really good people, because they were looking after animals. They had something to do that they liked, and there was as we've seen in another episode where we did an animal thing in a prison, one of the prisoners said, working with these dogs, they were doing dogs. They said, working with these dogs has brought out my humanity. And I went, wow, that's pretty great. So, so there was a story that came out in the local paper in Florida, and everybody in Florida who had extra animals they didn't want to have, like, there was someone had a turkey and someone had a pig, and then some people had some goats. They brought them all down to Monroe County Sheriff's Office and said, "Here, take my pig, please." And so he ended up building a farm, for all these animals. He now has like 140 animals there, and all the prisoners that are at a certain level of
right,
these animals, and they're all doing great. And what's really encouraging is, what do they want to do when they get out of prison? They want to work for animal welfare.
Right.
Well, that's great. If we could do that in all the prisons, maybe there'd be
helping the animals and giving the prisoners purpose.
Exactly.
It's
a win-win.
Exactly. Awesome. So I know one of the things we wanted to talk about was, how can young people get involved and support, but I know we kind of touched on a bunch of that. But if people want to support specifically AnimalZone,
for us, the best thing they can do, because we're always looking for ideas, first of all. And if you're living in a neighborhood and or a community where you have something that, gee, they should do a story about this or that, let us know, because that's been some of the referrals we've had have been the best stories we've come up with. Sometimes it can be very just, a mom and pop operation that is just some people who are volunteering their time, and they built a little sanctuary. Like in Florida, we're going to go to one where this guy rescues primates, and they're both biologists by trade, and they're retired now, and they just are looking after primates that have, some of the people get them as pets, and then they realize that, maybe a little capuchin monkey is cute when he's, 1 or 2, but when he gets to about 4 or 5, it's not much fun. So
a little more precocious,
like biting, breaking things, and a lot of other stuff. So these folks have built a sanctuary which gives them, these primates, lots of open area that have like trees they can climb in, but it's all properly, so they can't escape. They can't be attacked by predators. And I thought, well, that's what people can do. In any case, stories like that are always something we love. And so if you go onto the animalzone.org website, and where it says sign up for our newsletter, don't worry, we've only sent out about a couple since we started. But it's also a good way for us to acquire email addresses and put in notes about what they might want to let us know about. And we can follow up on it. And of course, if you happen to have, if Elon Musk is your dad, mention him, because maybe he'd like to help support the show. We survive solely on grants and donations, but we have a couple of angel supporters that sees what we're doing and they like it. So, that was always helpful. But I would rather honestly direct people to donate it to the charities themselves, to the nonprofits. Those are the folks who really need it, and they're the ones who are having tangible results with animal welfare. And there's some great ones. And you can, again, local is what I say is the most important, because that'll have an impact, a real impact. Like going to the one you're working at. I assume that they're a nonprofit, and they probably need some funding, right?
They actually they just built a new medical facility.
It's really upscale. I finally got to walk there this summer. It's really nice.
That's great. Well, those capital campaigns are amazing if they can pull it off. I'm working on one right now for a place here that is trying to build a much better medical facility and also better holding areas, because it dates back to the 1800s, and animal welfare was a little different then than it is today. As you can imagine. And the buildings they have now are from the 50s, so it still looks like it's more like the dog pound than the shelter you want to have. And so they're doing a major project, which I've been helping them with the fundraising, which is, I hate it. I don't like fundraising, but I love these groups, so I'm going to do what I have to do, which is mostly beg.
That's the other thing. I know that they've Willowbrook and there's a couple other places he's interned. Any animals they can't release then become ambassador animals, kind of help people understand, particularly in his case, the local animals better, but that kind of thing.
having those ambassador animals are great. I've seen that over and over again in different shelters where they exactly the same problem. They have an animal that you can't release. They have injuries or issues. Maybe they're blind. Who knows? But they won't survive in the wild. So they bring them into schools. They bring them to certain church groups, to organizations that are of interest, and they talk about it. And it's a great opportunity, especially with kids, to see a wild animal up front and close and learn about them. I think that's probably the most inspirational way to get people interested in wildlife.
Yeah, that's actually, I was thinking, and this maybe relates back to something else, that he'll come home and say, they make the effort, like you mentioned, to not become attached to the animals, not interact with them more than they have to, per se. Try not to become attached. So when they bring those ambassador animals in to remind people, if you do find something wounded, but maybe you could nurse it back to health, but it might not get exactly the care that it needs. But also bringing it to a rescue, they'll help try and maintain that separation so it can be released. You don't want it to get acclimated.
No, exactly. When we were filming up in Marin County in Northern California, we went to a place called Marin Wild Care, and it's a wildlife rescue center. And when we were arriving there with the crew, this family was arriving, and this young girl was carrying this pigeon that she was holding in a towel, and she had rescued this pigeon in their backyard, and she absolutely, clearly was very attached to the pigeon and been looking after the pigeon, but they realized they better take the pigeon to a proper wildlife center so that they can see what's wrong, because the pigeon couldn't fly and it was something with its wing. So we actually followed the whole story as the pigeon arrived, and the parents assured the little girl that it was okay, and the vet came out and said, "I'll look after your pigeon. I'll make sure that it does well. I'll let you know what happens." And then we followed the pigeon into the examination room where they did a full exam. They found out that there was some issue with the wing, but it could be healed if it was given time and some medication, and they ultimately they did release the pigeon after we had left, but it had gone through the process, and then they did tell the little girl, which made her day, even though she probably looked up in the sky going, "Where's that little pigeon? Where's my
every pigeon she sees now?" That's one an important thing out here. There's going to be, they're all important, but the American eagles,
bald eagles,
the bald eagles, the river that we live on is a major thoroughfare for them, and they nest along it and whatnot. So every once in a while, one of the rescues or somewhere will end up with a wounded eagle, and making sure that those get nursed back to health.
Yeah, I mean, that's our national symbol. They got to be healthy, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful that you guys have got that whole spread. What's the most unusual wildlife animal you've seen come through your doors?
I've never been there when it's happened, but I know Willowbrook has had a snowy owl before. I think every once in a while.
Yeah,
because we're pretty far south for them to come down, but it happens every once in a while. So,
wow. That would be great to see. I love owls. We have lots of owls out here. We have barn owls and the great big owls. But they're great creatures. And I need to build a whole box because I want to have them living around here. Keep the rodentia in check.
We hear them every once in a while. One will be living in our backyard.
We get great horns in our backyard a lot.
They're impressive.
Yeah. We can tell the rodent population must be up a little bit because the owls have moved in. So we actually have a running joke that in our neighborhood we tend to have Cooper's hawks, which eat other birds typically. But outside of our neighborhood, large open farmland, there's red-tailed hawks. And the red-tailed hawks tend to eat rabbits or something larger.
Right.
Well, in our backyard, there'll be 30 rabbits because there's a Cooper's hawk. And the rabbits are very comfortable. So we've often said, well, maybe we could just do a international exchange program for a week or two.
But then this summer, the coyotes decided to move into the subdivision. And all of a sudden, the rabbits were nowhere to be found.
Yeah, I bet. We have coyotes here in, of course, Southern California. It's got lots of coyotes. And for the most part, they're pretty great. I mean, some people get worried, but they don't want to let their little dogs out or cats out because sure, they're gonna be dinner. But when they come onto the property here, we have as I mentioned, the donkey. Donkey will start braying the minute he sees the coyote.
Yeah.
And the coyote kind of just wanders by, doesn't really pay much attention. The donkey just brays because they let us know what's happening, which is a great thing about a donkey. They're very smart animals, and they're very, I think they get bad rap. They get a lot of bad jokes about donkeys, but really they're probably less skittish than a horse, and a little more contemplative, and very loving. They're great pets. If you happen to have a place to put a donkey or two, you gotta have two.
You gotta have two. That's right. Well, and when you talk about the coyotes, like I say, occasionally the coyotes wander in. Fox.
Yeah, because we have a pair of Siberian Huskies. Yeah, we can't let them outside. We're not allowed to have fences. Wouldn't help anyway with our dogs. Yeah. And our newest pair, one of them loves to eat rabbit poop, so we have. So when we walk them, they're on leash.
They're on leads.
Yeah. When we walk but them. Then sometimes we'll come across a coyote at the end of the street, and every time it's just we both turn around. That's it.
Yeah, these dogs who are effectively bigger than the coyotes because coyotes are reasonably small. The coyote will look at the dog will look at the coyote, and they just turn and walk away from each other. They don't want to bother each other. Yeah.
And for the most part, I mean, I look at a coyote and I think, well, it's like a dog. I mean, they're very canine in their appearance and their behavior. I mean, they're just a little wilder. But we watch them a lot, and they've never bothered us. They're not any more interested in hanging with us than we are with them. Although actually, I wouldn't mind spending a little time. But as long as they're not, they're mangy and you feel sad for them. But most of the ones around here have found enough things to eat that they're doing pretty well.
We had neighbors one time tell us that they saw a wolf in the neighborhood. And I said, okay, you're telling me this story very calmly, which aside from the fact that there are not wolves in our neighborhood, tells me it was a coyote.
Yeah. A lot of
with our coyotes, sometimes we'll hear them howling out in the cornfields because they caught something. Around here, I think they'll sometimes gaggle up to take down deer because we have a decent deer population.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So but that's what they do.
Yeah, but we always tell everybody, if you saw it and you were just like, oh, look, a wolf. No, that was a coyote.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any dogs?
The big Siberian Husky.
Yeah, we have two Huskies.
Yeah. Still have them. Great. Okay. Yeah. So we have we had a rescue dog named Mikey. Mikey was he was the best dog. He was there. He is.
Very nice.
He's no longer with us, sadly. He died at 9 years, which was way too young. But he was a very funny dog. We thought originally he might be a bulldog. We were kind of told, well, he's a boxer mix, something like that. And no, he was turned out to be 100% pit bull. But back then pit bulls were not that popular, so they had to. I think he's something else. We did DNA testing to make sure what he was. He was 100% pit bull. Greatest dog though, sweetest dog. Funny, would sit there, always looked like he was laughing with those alligator jaws that they have. But so we had a behaviorist working with him to try and get him to come when you call his name, and just simple things like that, because he was a little bit stubborn, would be a gentle way to put it. So she turns up, and she had him on one of those leashes that expands out, the kind of. So she turns up with Mikey on this leash, and we're standing outside of the house, just talking, and all of a sudden he sees something he wants, and he starts running for it, and it pulls the leash right out of her hand, and he starts running, and then he looks behind him. There's this leash round chasing him, and he's running around the house. All the way around the house, by again, and he's still seeing this thing chasing him because it's attached to him. And he did it about 3 or 4 times. We're sitting there crying, laughing because it's so. The behaviorist, I think, is sort of embarrassed because she's like supposed to be in charge, and she's
right.
That's working. And then he disappeared for a good 3 hours. We couldn't find him, and he I guess finally found a place to hide out, and the leash wasn't seemingly after him at that point. But animals are pretty entertaining too.
We've adopted several Huskies.
Mm-hmm. My entire life we've had Huskies.
Yeah, and the personality from animal to animal. And I have to say, just as a side note on pit bulls, every pit bull we've ever met is the most lovable, goofy, just adorable, has no idea that it weighs 700 pounds and could knock you over, because they're built like a bull moose. But they've all been lovable and adorable. So it is truly how they're
Grandma's
raised.
was really nice. And then
Yeah.
we had a husky we're convinced was part pit bull.
Yeah.
And he was probably the friendliest dog we've ever had.
He was just the goofiest, most
He would
lovable
lick
thing.
everything.
Yeah.
He was a rescue, and there's a chance he came from like a frat house because he would stare at us when we have popcorn
and pizza.
So we would toss him like a couple kernels. And now with all our dogs, we'll toss them a couple kernels. It's kind of become a tradition.
Oh, that's great.
But animals are so much how you raise them. I hear so many people say, "Oh, this type of animal's mean. This type of animals, they're just like people. They're going to be how they were raised."
It's so true. And
they don't want to mess with you. They don't.
Your parakeet is a whole story itself. Because like we're hanging out, and I don't know. First, my mom was grabbing dog food at the pet store. I don't know why. And Dad sees this one bird that they cannot sell. This one monk parakeet.
He was apparently mean to everybody.
Yeah, apparently he bites everyone. He's mean. And my dad's like, "Well, we gotta adopt him, right?" And he comes on with this monk parakeet. It only likes him, despite the fact that my mom takes care of it. It despises my mother. Me and him kind of have a mutual understanding. Yeah, but it's crazy that it's like, because monk parakeets are supposed to be the nice ones, and we have this little like gremlin. He doesn't like other birds at all. Like he's by himself, but I don't think we could get him another bird because like he has a bell with he can see his reflection. Sometimes he'll love it, and sometimes he'll attack it. You never know.
He'll sit with me. He'll sit on my shoulder. He'll eat breakfast with me. He doesn't like anybody else.
No, so it's like we have this one parakeet that's like, no, I don't want to be in a flock. Leave me alone.
I think animals know when you rescue them. I mean, there's something that happens. I notice that with dogs, with cats, all our rescues here, they seem to understand that there's something beyond what we may take for granted, an understanding that you've stepped in to save them. And they appreciate that. I think there's a real appreciation. We have 3 cats, as I mentioned. The first one we got in here was a little female cat that was born up in the ranch in the mountains, and up there they would become dinner for something. There were bobcats and all kinds of bears, all kinds of things that look at a little kitten as a delicious appetizer. So I thought, and it was a sweet little creature. So I said I got to take her back and bring her home. And she arrived here with 1,000 fleas on her. Luckily, my significant other, she managed to get all these fleas off. Took about 3 or 4 sessions, but that was good. And the cat's become just the best cat. I mean, somewhat feral because she lived outside and survived eating rats and whatever else. But she's very, very sweet. The 2 boy cats came after we were shooting an episode. We were down at Universal Studios shooting a segment about they do a dog rescue program out down there. And so we've been filming the people involved with that. And then we went over to a cat rescuer called LA Kitten Rescue. They rescue just kittens. And it was great to film all these kids. I mean, nothing's sweeter than tons of little kittens all running around you. And I'm sitting on the couch interviewing the woman who runs the shelter. And while we're talking, this little black and white kitty just starts climbing up onto my shoulder, gets up onto my shoulder, starts licking my ear. And I'm going, uh-oh. I go, uh-oh. And so I call Wendy up here and I said, sweetie, what do you think? You want another cat? She says, why? And I go, well, this is a really sweet cat. And I just got kissed on the ear. And she said, And she said, well, let me talk to the shelter owner. And so she's talking. And that turns out that this little cat had a bonded brother. So they didn't want to let just one go. They wanted both to go, even though we already had a female cat up there. And so we ended up rescuing both of them. We brought them up from LA, and they're with us today, 7 years later, and they are still the most amazing cats, funny as anything. And they know they've been rescued, and they appreciate it. I don't get licked on the ear very often anymore. I think that was a little, little foreplay.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The reality is that they are really, really wonderful animals.
That was the one. That was how my wife conned us into temporarily having 3. We always had 2 huskies.
Yeah.
Because if you have one, they will destroy your house. A husky cannot be alone. The pack like being with another. Well, one of ours passed away, so we went to adopt another one, and we're looking at the one big, huge white one, and there's this little red one hanging around, and I'm getting attached to this white one. I'm like, well, what's with this little red one over here? My wife's like, oh, did I forget to mention that the rescue said these two are kind of attached to one another, so we're taking both. So we had 3 huskies for a while. Yeah.
Wow. Well, it's just a bigger party, right? More
That's
popcorn.
right. Yes. Yes.
Popcorn.
It's really funny because the big white one, like 75 pounds, a hose, a garbage truck, anything, he's terrified.
He's scared of everything.
He'll go hide in the basement.
Really?
But then you have this little like 60-pound red one. That thing would fight like a Tyrannosaurus Rex. She doesn't care.
Interesting.
And we think that she kind of protected him. We think they grew up on a farm. We think she protected him.
We know it to some extent. So it was that the old farm, they adopted the red one for a 4-H animal.
Right.
She's not the type to do it.
Yeah,
the first Christmas picture we took of them, she gave him a death stare that he remembers to this day. Not 4-H animal. So then they get the white one, and then he's kind of a 4-H animal, but then eventually something happens, and then we get the dogs.
Yeah, they get both. But I guess that's one thing to remember, that it's very. I agree. It's very important to adopt animals. There are so many animals out there that need adoption. But to understand that when you bring an adopted animal into your home, you don't know really what they've been through. You may not know anything about their history, and to be patient and calm with them. Our big white one, the first night we took him home, he got up on our bed and he growled at me. My wife got in the bed. He growled at me when I went to get in the bed, and I had to learn that he will growl, but he has become very attached to me. But he feels like he needs to make that announcement. But then when I get in the bed, he cuddles up and sleeps on me with me. So we aren't sure what happened in his past history with maybe a husband and a wife or something, but we just understand now that that's part of him, and to learn those quirks and be patient with those quirks with an adopted animal.
Absolutely. I think with all animals, you got to be patient and build that trust. It takes time to build trust, and especially if they've come from a challenging background, it may take a lot more time, but eventually you can usually bridge that distrust to a point where the Henny that we have, she's very skittish, and she really didn't like to be even touched by people when we got her.
Right.
The reason we got her was because our donkeys would break out of here and go down the street to where she was living, and they were flirting with her. So the guy who had the Henny said, "Take my Henny, please." And so we said, "Sure, why not?" And it turned out a great relationship, because the donkey actually lets the Henny kind of rule the roost. I mean, she's female, women how they are, right?
They're in charge.
But she's turned out over the years, and we've had her now it's like 6 years, 5 years, something like that. The more we give her carrots and treats and stuff like that, and we go and try and rub her ear, let her know that we really love her. She's becoming more and more of a loving personality. She'll talk to us. She kind of does a half Winnie and a half Bray, because I guess she's half donkey and half horse. It's really kind of humorous, and she's turning into quite an animal. So you can really win over an animal over time if you just put the time into it, and treats do wonders with animals.
That's and actually, and this may be kind of a full side road. There's a local horse barn here, and I know they have rescued some of their horses, but what they've done is they've cared for they found the calmest horses that they brought in, and they now use them for mentally and physically challenged therapy for children. So they've taken these horses who maybe didn't have a home, found a home for them, and then also incorporated that into therapy for young adults. That's an amazing program. They're obviously non-for-profit. That's, if you're ever looking for something on that topic, amazing program.
It is incredible how it works for people who are, PTSD, all kinds of different issues, mental challengings, and horses are incredible. They just seem to be very soothing to people that are under stress. We have we have an episode which aired recently, and actually it's done very well in the film festival circuit. It was called Alice and Her Herd. It was from Broadway to barnyards, or Broadway to barns, I think is. And the idea is that this woman was a big star on Broadway. She was in New York, and she trained a lot of actors as well, and voice coach for people that are very well known. And she was herself on a show at the Carnegie Hall, and it was one of the longest running shows called Jacques Brel is Alive and Well and Living in Paris. And she's got a great voice. So anyway, long story, and that you have to see the episode because it's I take all the time.
We'll put a link to that particular one right here. Yeah.
But she went to she and her now husband built a barn, and they started rescuing horses that were set for going to slaughterhouses in Mexico. And they would bring them in there, and a lot of these were incredibly stressed animals, and kind of at death's door practically. And she sings to them, and we filmed her singing to these horses, and they come to her when she starts singing, and it's like they feel something from what she's doing, and it's just so heartwarming to see what we can do to make animals feel good. If I sang to the horses, they'd be running the other way. But,
they'd offer you the bag of oats to stop.
in my mouth. But it's really kind of fascinating to see how animals respond to care and love. I mean, like people too. I mean, we all respond to being cared for and being loved and being looked after. But animals seem to almost they're childlike in some ways. I feel like our cats haven't gotten past probably the age of 4 or 5, which is not a bad age. But they kind of understand. They know their names. They don't seem to understand no too well. But that's a cat.
Sometimes by choice.
Selective hearing.
Yes.
Yeah, because like Tucker, I don't think Tucker's far past like a 5-year-old.
He's the bigger white one as opposed to the little red one.
I don't think he's past like 5.
We call him Baby Huey. You remember the cartoon Baby Huey?
Yeah,
we call him. He's a big old lovable oaf. He's just
Well, the little red one, like you can always tell she's thinking about something. She loves like pretending to lose to him in their play fights and stuff. So he calls her Maleficent. So she could be like
always contemplating.
Yeah, like she might be, but yeah, it's so interesting.
Yeah, the different personalities of the different animals. Yeah. So it is amazing to see him working with them, and see all the rescues and everything do. It's amazing the things they're able to accomplish. And I go into the doctor and I can't quite get the doctor to understand what I need as a human. Sometimes, it'll take a couple appointments, but somehow they'll take these animals they find, like you said, and nurse them back to health, and they're right back out there. Yeah. The time and care that gets put into that is amazing. Yeah.
One of the things we did when we were filming in Hawaii earlier this year was we decided to expand our horizons a little bit more, because we started as a dog and cat thing, companion animals. And then we decided, barnyard animals, we should include pigs and goats and horses and so forth. And then from that, we got into the wildlife world, and we started including wildlife stories, because that to me is just wonderful.
Yeah.
So in Hawaii, we said, well, what are we going to do here that's going to be different? Oh, insects. We haven't done insects. Well, the reason we hadn't done insects is we didn't have a really good story. We didn't have anybody that was that up to speed, but we met this woman who specializes in honeybees, Hawaiian honeybees. And she was so knowledgeable. Susan is her name. Her organization is called Bird and Bee Hawaii. She rescues birds and bees. It sounds like the beginning of a song. Anyway, she has the beehives, and she'll help people who have bees that they don't want to remove the hive and move it somewhere else. But she has built these hives where she explains how these hives work. And I've seen them from a distance, but I've never been to a beehive or a beekeeper before. So I turn up, and this is my usual uniform, right? An AnimalZone logo and black pants. Keeps me looking a little skinnier than I am. But anyway, so I turn up to do this interview, and I said, let's go see your bees. And she says, not what you've got wearing. And I go, really? She says, if you walk up to one of the beehives with black on, they're going to think you're a bear and they'll attack you.
Oh.
Really? Oh, gosh.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a resemblance to a bear. Anyway, so she made me put on one of those white outfits with the white top and white gloves. I mean, I felt like I was going to a wedding or something. But in any case, I went into this hive with her, and she starts pulling out these frames. There's about 5 frames in that hive, and each frame had different things going on. In the first frame, you could just see the bees, the worker bees were building the honeycombs. They were just sort of building it out with wax or whatever it is that they build it with. Then the next hive, next frame they brought out, there were bees putting some kind of, I guess, the honey in the honeycombs. And I went, wow, that's great. Then the next one was the queen bee was laying eggs. And she said, that's a queen bee. And you could tell it was a little different, a little bigger. She was laying eggs in some of these honeycombs. And then the next frame, there were a bunch of worker bees all kind of crowded around. And there was this one bee that was moving around in kind of an oval circle. And she said, that's the waggle dance. And I go, waggle dance? What's that? She says, well, if you notice, he's going around the circle. Then he goes up and down, then he goes back around the circle, up and down, and then back around. And what he's telling the other bees is where the really good flowers are to go get pollen. And he's explaining where they are in relationship from the hive and the sun in the right direction. And I'm going, you're kidding me. These bees are brilliant. I couldn't do that. So, you learn every step of the way. It's a fascinating learning experience.
Yeah, the bees have had Google Maps for generations.
Yeah. So, anyway.
Very cool. Yeah. Well, are there, I think we kind of touched on everything, and I much prefer the way we did it than my little list of questions. It was great talking.
My points and then some, but I appreciate it. It's great.
But is there anything else big coming up? Any big exciting episodes coming up? I mean, you're heading down to Florida, and
well, right now, as I said, we're airing for the next couple of months. We're airing all of our new season of Hawaii, season 14. Right. By the way, we have over 188 episodes shot.
Wow!
So we've got a nice collection now. So if you go on to AnimalZone.org and just click on Watch, it'll show you all the different seasons, and then there's descriptions of each episode, and you can see what might tickle your fancy. Yeah. But you can binge watch for days, If you go on to Tubi or Pluto especially is good. If you go to Pluto and put AnimalZone in the search, it'll come up with, I think, season 6 and 7. And, that's another way to kind of binge watch on your TV if you have that. But what's coming up in Hawaii, we've got some really great episodes coming up. We went to this one place called the Lanai Cat Sanctuary on the island of Lanai. And we'd heard that people fly to Lanai to visit this cat sanctuary. And Lanai is not easy to get to. I mean, you either got to take a boat or you got to take a small plane. And it's, it's not a place you can get to easily or inexpensively, I should say. Yeah, but anyway, we went out there and we went to this cat sanctuary. They had 850 cats all around this cat sanctuary. I've never seen so many cats, and they were all happy with each other. That was the amazing thing. But I can understand why, because the land that they were on had this beautiful ocean view, palm trees on all sides. They had a mango tree in the middle where a lot of the cats would climb up in the mango tree. They had little houses that had been built for these cats, and they had them separated so that like the youngest kittens were in one area and the senior cats were in another area. Special needs cats were in another area. And people would come there, pay a donation to the sanctuary, and then they would go in and feed the cats and spend time with the cats. It was like a cat cafe, but without the cafe. But it was just, and I said, well, why are all these cats here? Because I mean, where'd they come from? We're out here in the middle of the Pacific. I said, well, what happened was Lanai was known as the pineapple island. They would grow pineapple. Dole was doing a big business of pineapples.
Right.
And they also had sugarcane. And sugarcane and pineapples attracted rats. And they had a big rodent population that was really becoming a challenge. So they started bringing cats to get rid of the rats. Well, I think it helped. But of course, cats out in the open air, it's springtime all year round.
Right.
There are lots of more cats. And so they rounded up all these cats, a lot of them now, and they're all safe and sound off the roads and out of harm's way. And people can go there and adopt, and they'll adopt them and fly them back to the mainland, which I thought was just great. So anyway,
well, the cats have gone full circle. They were shipped in. Now they're being shipped out.
Exactly. They may not like it. I mean, it depends where they're getting shipped to, but Hawaii isn't
Right.
bad, especially with the ocean view.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Anyway,
I didn't know if you had. I know one of the big things for a lot of his viewers is how to get involved in this particular area and industry and how it helps support. And I think we touched on a lot of that.
Yeah.
Any other questions or thoughts on that particular?
I mean, I think that people who are animal lovers or interested in animals, I really encourage young people, kids that are in school, to think about maybe looking at a career with animals, because there's one thing that's really needed more than anything is vets. Veterinarians are in a short supply. And by the way, veterinarians make a good salary. I mean, if you're looking for a career, doing something with animals, being a vet is kind of a win-win for everybody. But I would say that would be one thing. And there's great colleges. UC Davis has a great veterinarian program, and a lot of other colleges have some wonderful things to do that in that world. But great place to start is just volunteering and fostering. If you volunteer your local shelter, you just lend a hand. It can be what you're doing right now, which is you're sweeping up maybe some of the poop from these animals.
Right.
At the end of the day, you're also helping so much, because it really does take a lot of people to make something work like that. And help out with that, with maybe a shelter to begin with, and then look at maybe working as a tech or just even an office job, because there's a lot of administrative stuff that needs to be done too with animal welfare. And then if you really want to find something to do, come and get in touch with us, and we'll try and figure out a role in AnimalZone, maybe a gaffer or something.
Excellent. That's right.
But I encourage people to do it. Animal welfare is one of the most rewarding things. I've done a lot of different things in my life and career-wise, and for me, it's by far the most rewarding thing I've ever done.
Excellent. All right. Well, I want to thank you very much for your time, taking the time with us today, and for everything you're doing to bring awareness to all of this. This is great. This is, everybody's got to do their own little bit, but you getting out and making such all of this known is wonderful. We'll definitely put some of those episodes you mentioned, but how to get to AnimalZone and see all those episodes. And if anybody has any ideas, get a hold of Arthur, let him know. Maybe come out and visit your area and highlight something in your region.
Well, it's really been a pleasure being with both of you. Thank you for having me on, and great luck with all that you're doing, because getting the word out on your big successful podcast is very important, because ears is the first step to learning how to help animals. And you're doing that.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And have a good holiday weekend.
Yep.
You too. Enjoy your outing tomorrow.
Yes, with the Pelicans.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
All right.
Really a pleasure.
Thank you. Nice meeting you. Thank you very much.
You too. Bye.